Dora Dougherty Strother's aviation career has spanned more than 50 years. Her love of flying began as a child, and she earned a pilot certificate through the Civilian Pilot Training Program. She was the 6th woman in the United States to earn an airline transport pilot license. She received WASP wings at Avenger Field, Texas in 1942. When the WASP program ended in late 1944, Dora Dougherty had been checked out as a pilot in command of 23 different aircraft.
There was a time in 1941 and 42, as you know, that our country was really short on pilots, really short on airplanes. Finally, they got so desperate for pilots that they would have taken anything that could fly: chimpanzees, orangutans, women. It was at that time that Dee Dee and I signed up to join the WASP program. You had to have a pilot's license and about 200 hours in order to get in a place where the Army could teach you how to fly their way. You probably have heard of our training program. It started in Houston, but then they moved us up to Sweetwater. Now, Sweetwater is very close in let's say, configuration to Wendover. There's nothing out there in West Texas. But somehow the idea that there was a women's airport, an airport filled with women, got quickly like wildfire across the country, and we had more guys that were having forced landings at Jackie Cochran was our commanding officer, and they were calling Sweetwater Cochran's Convent. The idea of the program struck the American women as an opportunity for them to be able to serve as well as the men. And I know that people of this generation do not understand the people of our generation and their attitudes towards women doing such things. It was unheard of. And so we felt that we were plowing new ground, and I think every one of us felt that we were carrying on our backs all the future women pilots in the country. 25,000 women applied to get into this program. 1,800 were accepted. Of those 1,800, 1,000 were able to get through the program and get their wings. Dee Dee and I graduated in the middle of 1943 from this training program, and we were supposed to be sent out to ferry aircraft around the country. But we were a part of a trial group to see if women could do something other than ferrying aircraft around the country. The ferry command took aircraft from the manufacturer to the point of embarkation so that the aircraft could go overseas, and that was what the women were doing. Dee Dee and I were in a group that was sent to Camp Davis, North Carolina, another garden spot in our country. We were sent there to tow targets for the anti-aircraft training. See these gray hairs? Our guys were pretty good. They usually hit the target or hit around the target, except on Monday. Well, while Dee Dee and I were at Eglin, appeared this man who decided that it was necessary to find 2 women to fly the B-29. And he talked to Dee Dee and chose Dee Dee and me because I had just checked out in the A-20, which was the love of my life. I think that was the most beautiful airplane, with one exception. So we went to Birmingham to check out. Colonel Tibbets, he was a lieutenant colonel then, had set aside, I think, 3 days. Don Albury was up there with us and flew with us. A bunch of guys went up with us in a B-34, and we were told that this was so secret, don't tell anybody, don't say anything. And so these guys in the ship with us said, "We hear you're going to Birmingham to check out the B-29. And we said, uh-huh. And they said, "Well, we also have heard that if you are, we're not going to fly with you." But we were offered the opportunity to do this, and we were thrilled to be able to try. I really didn't think I had a 4-throttle hand, but it turned out to be big enough I had never been, he wanted somebody, two women who had never flown four-engine. Now, the reason that he wanted this was to demonstrate the fact that it was not an unsafe aircraft. It was so easy to fly that even two women could fly it. Two women who had never flown anything with four engines in it. Well, after we flew out to Clovis and flew with several crews would go up with us, and we would presume to show them how to fly the B-29. But it worked, and the rumor got across the country that there were two women flying B-29s, and so this was a challenge to the guys that there was really very little to be afraid of if you did what you were supposed to do. But that was why we were flying the B-29, and it, I think, probably has changed our lives forever. After this was over, we did it for maybe a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. But that was all that it took. So shortly after that was the time that the 509th was being started. This was the end of 44. Colonel Tibbets came through, found out that I was flying cargo, and arranged to have me shipped out to Wendover to fly cargo for him. And another girl went with me, Mary Helen. Mary Helen and I went to Wendover. It was 11 o'clock at night, and I had never seen the mountains before. And so when I woke up the next morning at Wendover and saw the mountains, it was really quite an experience for me. Now this was November, and it was snowing. The mountains were white, the desert was white, everything was white. And I was at Wendover for 2 months, and I can't tell you exactly what I did. Wendover, we knew there was something going on, but nobody knew what it was. You could get a pass to get in the main gate. If you wanted to get onto the flight line, you had to have a second pass. If you were in an aeroplane taxiing out to take off, you could cross another line that was on the ramp. But if you were not in an airplane, you had to have a third pass, and I don't know how many more passes you would have had if you went to the center of the field. I had, for example, a mission that there were usually a bunch of men in the back compartment of a B-34 or a C-47, and they had some equipment, and I would be told to fly at a certain altitude and a certain heading, and then I'd be told to climb or to turn and to take another heading. And I went all over the desert doing these weird sort of things, and came back and landed, and they got out, and now that was, I didn't go anyplace, I just wandered around the desert. Many years later, I was talking to a man down at Los Alamos, and he said, "Oh, you were flying the Dipsy Doodle," and I said, "I was." And he said that they were probably practicing fusing. I had no idea. Nobody told me that then, I wouldn't have known what they were talking about anyway. I had many flights down to a place called Las Vegas, New Mexico. I'd never heard of Los Alamos. Las Vegas was very strange because if I had a flight plan to Las Vegas, I was never allowed to close my flight plan. I was met by a man in a staff car, either my co-pilot and I, or my flight engineer and I. We were taken to wherever we could spend the night. They closed our flight plan for us. In the morning, they wrote a new flight plan. We went back to Wendover. If I took people or cargo, I never knew what was going on. So I'd like to tell you what I did at Wendover, but I really can't do that. Well, I know that we all have eaten a big dinner, and I do not want to keep you up too much longer. I know that you have many memories of those days. Mine are all very treasured. It's been a pleasure to share them with you.